सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणी विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम् पुराणन्यायमीमांसा धर्मशास्त्राङ्गमिश्रिताः वेदाः स्थानानि विद्यानां धर्मस्य च चतुर्दश आयुर्वेदो धनुर्वेदो गान्धर्वश्चैव ते त्रयः अर्थशास्त्रं चतुर्थं तु विद्याः अष्टादशैव ताः ओम शांति 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 ओवर टू यू नागराज जी
Namaste, all of you. Welcome to this landmark conference in the history of Indian academics itself. I am proud to claim that this is for the first time that in the entire history of Indian academics, there is an attempt to discuss this topic of jurisprudence from the Indic roots. No one has attempted this earlier. We are proud to announce that Indic Academy or Indica is doing this for the first time ever. As a formality, for the benefit of those who are new to Indica or Indic Academy, usually give an introduction to the organization before I venture into any further discussion on the theme of the conference. Indica is a non-traditional university for traditional studies. Founded by Shri Harikiran Vadlamani Garu, Indic Academy runs the activity of Indic cultural renaissance under three major themes. One is preservation. Indica supports Gurukula studies of Vaidika Shastras. Recently, Indica announced Shastra Gurukula's funding as Griha Gurukulams. If a Shastri scholar is teaching Shishyas in a very traditional way, as it has been happening from millennia, at his own house, Sri Harikiran Vadlamani Garu has announced that he is prepared to fund any number of Griha Gurukulams that are run at home by the Gurus in Shastras, in Vaidika Shastras. Very soon, Indica is going to launch a Mahagurukulam where all these Shastra Gurukulas are at one place, and apart from that, other classical art forms, martial arts, and other Gurukulams are also accommodated on the same campus, alongside a research center for contemporary studies and a space allocated for the friendly organizations which are participating in the same activity of Indic Renaissance. Organizations like Samskrita Bharati and all. We have so far conducted 18 conferences, several workshops, We are running courses on our platform called Indica Courses. We are running an online magazine come research journal called Indica Today. In fact, the papers of this conference are also going to appear after this conference on that online magazine come journal only. We are running platforms of magazines like Indica Facts and so on, several news magazines. We have units like Center for Soft Power, Center for Indigenous and Polytheistic Studies, Indica Classical Library, dedicated for translation publications, Indica Yoga, Indica Moksha. Indica Yoga focuses on the practice of yoga. We have another Center for Textual Studies in Yoga. Recently, we launched a Center for Embodied Knowledge Systems. Indica is a vast umbrella of so many different organizations and units, several activities running perpetually from day in and day out. Our founder, Sri Harikiran Vadlamani Garu, is a highly creative educationist and entrepreneur. It is his educationist and scholarly side that brings these newer and newer topics to us. Every topic, including this topic, comes from his incessant creativity of thinking about what should happen for Indic Renaissance. For a story, I should say, about this conference, that one very senior advocate of Supreme Court of India, who has now become one of the justices of Supreme Court of India, when he was an advocate, proposed that there should be a dedicated center of Indic knowledge systems, especially focusing on the area of law and justice. He and his brother, another senior advocate of Andhra Pradesh, now Telangana High Court, and his sister, who is a professor of legal philosophy, that family came forward to start a center for research studies in law and justice. Sri Harikiran Vadlamani Garu named it after the father of this illustrious family, Pamadigantam Kodandaramaya Garu, late Justice Pamadigantam Kodandaramaya Garu. And it was launched on the same platform online. There was an event of launching Pamadigantam Kodandaramaya Center for Indic Studies in Law and Justice. We are going to see a presentation by Professor Ila Deshpande from the Law University at Nagpur about her experience of working with this center. And there is another traditional scholar of Shastras, Sri Jamalamadaka Srinivas Garu, who was also involved with this Pamadigantam Kodandaramaya Center for Indic Studies in Law and Justice. The whole project was divided into parts, and at that time, Sri Srinivas Garu and Professor Deshpande were involved in working with a project on the law of evidence. The Shastric sources and material which contribute to the rethinking about the philosophical and methodological foundations of what we today call law of evidence was being done with a team of a few advocates a few Shastric scholars, and one very senior Sanskrit scholar from Kavikula Guru Kalidasa Sanskrit University, Professor Madhusudan Penna, now the Vice Chancellor of the same university, and the professors from Law University like Professor Deshpande, all were working on that. Several other projects on rule of law, freedom of speech, and several different aspects of jurisprudence were being planned. It is at that time that Sri Harikiran Vedlamani Garu came up with a proposal for a conference on the Indic foundations of this area called jurisprudence. For the benefit of those audience who are not aware of the difference between a law study and a jurisprudence study, let me clarify that this conference or the center that is running under the auspices of Indic Academy do not study a particular code or a particular law in specific. Jurisprudence is an area where we study philosophy of law, philosophy of judicial work, philosophy, legal methodology, and these areas, which are philosophical foundations. So we are not talking about Hindu code bill or Hindu law, which were created by the British during their colonial rule and later reinforced by Dr. Ambedkar and Jawaharlal Nehru after independence. We are not working on that. As part of our study of Indic knowledge systems, we are studying, like in any other area that we are working, to what contemporary knowledge system, which Shastric foundations, scriptural foundations from the Hindu knowledge systems. Sri Meghji was mentioning Chaturdasha Vidyasthanas in the third shloka that he was reciting during invocation. So those Chaturdasha Vidyasthanas, how those sources and various other sources like Itihasas and Puranas, how they contribute to the contemporary knowledge systems to be used by the contemporary academicians inside contemporary university systems, not just of India, but all over the globe, by the entire international university academic system. So, as part of that, this area of jurisprudence, how it can be enriched and benefited by the study of our Shastras is being studied. As part of Indic Academy's activities, we do other things like protection, where we counter the distortions created by anti-Indic scholars, promotion, so that makes protection, preservation, protection, and promotion the activities of Indic Academy. But as part of our commitment to a non-traditional study of traditional knowledge systems and bringing our Shastras into contemporary knowledge systems, contemporary academics, this conference is going to focus on the area of jurisprudence. Not only jurisprudence, we included ethics also as a sister discipline. Among the contemporary academic areas of university system, ethics falls under what is called as social philosophy. It is usually the philosophy departments which study social philosophy, and as part of that ethics. When people study ethics, they don't study the ethical norms or ethical code as part of academics. What happens there is what is called as normative ethics. Normative ethics is an academic discipline which studies the theories, doctrines of how to decide ethical and non-ethical, how to decide good or bad, how to decide right or wrong. That normative ethics as on today is all West based area in which there are theories like absolute ethics, relative ethics, realist ethics, and various other theories. One of them is utilitarian ethics. And as part of utilitarian ethics, you have individual utilitarian ethics, to which the major contribution has come from John Stuart Mill. And jurisprudence, when it was emerging from the colonial roots, Western roots, I should say, when it was emerging, it was actually interacting with this area called ethics also. Even today, many judicial officers and presiding officials in the courts, they quote John Stuart Mill and other ethical philosophers, social philosophers. So these two areas of jurisprudence and ethics have even today a very close interaction with each other. That is the reason we chose ethics. And there we thought that we should bring from the Shastras and other sources of our scriptures and ancient literature, what are the thought processes, that is, normative ethical doctrines, theories, and philosophies which have been propounded and discussed and debated, analyzed and perpetuated and commented and analyzed by the scholars of Dharma Shastras. Usually, Dharma Shastras are looked at as code books which give code. But in the traditional Sanskrit literature, there was a word called Dharmagnya. Dharmagnya was not a code knowing rishi. Dharmagnya was a philosopher of Dharma. There were Dharmagnyas. And the snippets of this thinking and logic and debate got reflected in Itihasas and Puranas like Ramayana, Mahabharata, and other Ashtadasha Mahapuranas and Upapuranas. Repeatedly, statements of that normative ethical analysis of ethics has been reflected. Whenever we do this exercise of connecting the traditional Shastras and the contemporary knowledge systems, this mapping of which source book in what way connects with the contemporary knowledge system, in which way, is a very big exercise that has to be done. So for this area also, that is what we should do. So when you connect jurisprudence and ethics to the traditional Shastras, you cannot in a very blanket way say, oh, this is the Shastra, this is the book that has all the jurisprudence and ethics from the Indic roots. No. So we are in the process of it, we are in the exercise of that concept mapping between Shastras, and all the scholars in this conference are also going to do that. They have that exercise and they have that discretion and discerning of how to collect various sources from the traditional literature, from particularly from Sanskrit and Vedas and Vaidika Shastras, how to concept map the ideas there that are available in that literature, and to the various ideas of the specific contemporary knowledge system that we have taken up today called the ethics and the jurisprudence. How to connect this, they are well aware. We have senior Supreme Court advocates and High Court and lower court advocates here in our panel. We have senior professors of Sanskrit and Shastras from the university system. We have traditional scholars on this panel like Sri Jamalamadika Srinivas Garu. We have Sanskrit professors of Shastras like Professor Gauri Mahulikar. We have corporate background but traditional knowledge system scholars like Sri Megh Kalyana Sundaram Garu, Sri Arvind V. Iyer Garu, Sri G. V. Shivakumar Garu. And we have firebrand contemporary knowledge system scholars like our Dr. Sushumna Kannan Garu. We have advocates like Sri Aradhana Singh Garu and Sri Brinda Karanam Garu, Sujata Balasubramanian Garu. We have a professor of legal philosophy, Dr. Sri Lakshmi Peddada Garu. All these on our panel. So it's a great diversity of various backgrounds of scholarship, erudition, practice in life, like legal practice. This conference is not being curated just by me, like in all other conferences. I am fortunate to have my colleagues joining me in mainly curating that particular conference, a specialist. For this particular conference, the special curator for this specific conference is Shri Megh Kalyana Sundaram Garu. Shri Meghji, yes, the
Namaste. Namaste.
smiling one is the curator of this conference. Shri Megh Kalyana Sundaram Garu is a wonderful erudite scholar with a corporate background. He has a very big number of publications to his credit on Indian knowledge systems. Whenever he publishes, he does it rigorously with all the substantiation, references. And one of the areas of his interest is Dharma Shastras. When Sri Harikiran Vadlamani Garu found this interest in him, that he is keen about the Dharma Shastras, he allotted the curation of this conference to him. So, if whatever curation you see in this conference now, the guest speakers and the paper presenters, the presentation of selection of topics and sending of the concept note, organizing everything, the whole credit goes to Sri Megh Kalyana Sundaram.
That's not true, Nagaraj, but very gracious of you to share so much of. I would, as it was mentioned in the document, Nagaraj is the chief curator, and I'm happy to have had the opportunity to support him in whatever ways I could. Thank you for the opportunity, Hariji and Nagaraj.
Okay, as humble as you are always, that's good. So now we are going to have a discussion for the whole day on this topic of Indic roots of jurisprudence. Usually, what happens is in such studies of Indic knowledge systems from the point of view of contemporary knowledge systems, we usually draw only parallels between the two knowledge systems and show that we too have it. You have jurisprudence, I too have it. You have ethics, I too have it. Actually, even in other fields, you have mathematics, I have mathematics. But what is required is that we have to show how these similarities, we should not stop with those similarities. We should also go to the differences and distinctions and show in whichever part this particular knowledge system contributes to the contemporary knowledge system. Today, the day has come to decolonize the entire global knowledge systems, and it has already started. Some Afro American anthropology scholars used the word reverse gaze. The Western origin academics is being looked at from the indigenous local perspectives. There is a critique of international human rights chart, the way human rights have been charted. There is a critique of the legal thinking, jurisprudence thinking, not just from here, from this platform. Already, people have critiqued it from an Afro American point of view, from an African point of view, from a South American point of view. A critique of the existing legal philosophy, legal methodology, and areas like jurisprudence has already begun all over the world. So we are not the first people to do that, but we are the first people to do it from India, that we can say. Actually, there were other publications like the one by Justice Kadzu, and there was one by Rama Joyce, and there were some publications in this area of digging the jurisprudence thinking from an Indic perspective. But a systematic work, in an institutional work, had to start, and it was started by our Center for Indic Studies in Law and Justice. And this conference, we are sure, we are confident after going through all the material that we have on hand from the paper presenters and the guest speakers, is going to definitely be a breakthrough, a landmark in the history of jurisprudence studies in this country. And it is definitely going to contribute to the global, international jurisprudence academics. The present jurisprudence courses in our law universities and law colleges, as one of the panelists while discussing with us before this conference was lamenting, does not have any component of Indic perspectives or Indic roots of jurisprudence at all. Jurisprudence itself comes at the end of the course of an undergrad course like a 3-year LLB or a 2-year LLM. In LLM, there is a great emphasis on jurisprudence. But in neither of these, undergrad or postgraduate courses, unfortunately, even after so many years of independence, decolonization of jurisprudence studies in law colleges and law universities did not start. In spite of some publications that I was already mentioning from Justice Rama Joyce or Justice Kadzu or other authors, it has not entered the courses of the universities. So we are sure that at least a few people will start thinking. It will have definitely an impact on the law courses of the universities, jurisprudence courses of Indian universities, at least to begin with, and then later it will definitely go to the global international jurisprudence studies all over the world. This conference is not keeping only Indian law or Indian courts or Indian thinking. This is intended to contribute to global jurisprudence studies. So, with these few words, I would like to end my introductory comments